Welcome to Spiritual Ambition, where we tune in to awaken our divine nature and explore the provocative inner force compelling us toward our fullest potential. If you've achieved external success but feel a deeper calling, if you're tired of dimming your light to fit in, and you know there's a more powerful way to live and lead and love, you're in the right place. Host Donna Bond is a best-selling author, modern-day high priestess, and catalyst for personal transformation. Together, we're birthing a new paradigm of loving leadership, integrating our humanity with divine wisdom as our individual awakening serves collective evolution. Here's your host of Spiritual Ambition, Donna Bond.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 21, Spiritual Ambition. I'm your host, Donna Bond. What if the rules that you have been living by, which can sometimes feel like scarcity and struggle and force, aren't laws that you have to abide by, but just one version of reality that you were taught to believe? And one that you can evolve. If you feel trapped by limitations that seem unchangeable, like there's an invisible ceiling on what's possible for you, you don't want to miss today's episode, because we're going to explore your inherent intelligence, original wisdom, which is my book, Original Wisdom, Harness the Power of the Authentic You. And this is quite literally my story of how I broke out of physical world reality and began to align myself with my higher purpose, my higher knowing, and my original wisdom. And I don't know if you've been feeling Mercury in retrograde this week like I have, but whew, I am having a time. And there is no better time when we are sort of caught up in the yuckiness and the frustration of physical world reality to remember to tune in to our divine nature, which is what spiritual ambition is all about. So settle in, maybe make yourself a cup of tea. If you're here in Southern California, it's been cold and raining. If you're anywhere else on the globe, thank you so much for tuning in. Well, thank you if you're here in California also. I also want to give just a little shout out to the LAX Embassy Suites North. I want to say thank you to all of the associates at LAX Embassy Suite North who have been taking care of me since I have been here. We are broadcasting live today from this very busy LAX hotel. I'm headed out of the country to Italy at the end of the week, which feels super fun. So that's why I'm here. I want to invite you to close your eyes. Let's put our attention on our heart space for just a moment. I want to welcome in anybody who's here in the chat. Let's see. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Welcome back and welcome in. All right, we're going to close our eyes for just a moment. Infinite universe, we call ourselves forward into your loving. We ask to be cleared, filled, surrounded, and protected with the clear white light of living love. We ask that any karma, negativity, or imbalance be lifted and transmuted at this time. We ask that any constriction, contraction, disorganization, frustration, irritation, any energy or vibrational frequency that is vibrating at anything less than the frequency of divine loving, we ask that anything that is less than that in our field be lifted and transmuted at this time, taken to the highest realms of light and sound, and dispersed back into the nothingness. Into this space, we call in grace and peace and light and ease. We call in effortlessness and joy and play and fun. We call in higher awareness, inner knowingness, and original wisdom, our inherent intelligence, the inherent intelligence that exists in all beings, all living, everything that's on this planet. We also acknowledge and we welcome those divine beings of light that love each one of us individually and collectively, keeping in mind each of our unique destinies and paths. We ask for your support and assistance in bringing forward healing, revelation, and wisdom of the heart that will resonate most profoundly with each individual here for their highest good and the highest good of all concerned. We are grateful for the opportunity to come together, to open our hearts, to lift our consciousness, and to be here on the planet during this most epic time of the great change. Hello, Sunshine from Ireland. Welcome in. KB, hello. Gels, thank you for being here. Yeah, Mercury in retrograde. You probably know this, but Mercury rules transportation and communication, and it never seems to fail that when Mercury is doing its thing, which happens several times throughout the year, it slows down transportation. You know, we get stuck at the airports, and the message that we intend to send is not always the message that is received. Hi, Surrey. Good to see you. Anyways, I am sleeping in a hotel. I didn't get great rest last night, so I'm definitely feeling off. And it's so interesting about doing a live show when you feel a little bit off, because the show is scheduled for 2:22 p.m. Pacific time every other week. And you got to show up. I got to show up. So here I am. And I wanted to share with you today about my book, Original Wisdom, Harness the Power of the Authentic You. And I'm going to actually take you through a couple of the highlights in several of the chapters, because this book will change your life. I absolutely promise you that. This book will open your eyes, it will lift your awareness, and it will invite you to begin seeing yourself, first of all, most importantly, and your life from a different vantage point, from a different perspective. Hi, Sandra. Welcome from the UK. Before we jump into talking about everything is energy and choice makes you a creator, our thoughts become things and our beliefs shape our world, we're going to send some light around the planet. And I am going to actually ask for some light today, because I really could use just an infusion. And, you know, it's even as I say it, I can feel it coming in. And that is the beauty of the invisible world, that we can't see it. Some of us can see it. We're clairaudient, we're seeing it. But most of us can't see it. I can't see it. We can't taste it. We certainly can't touch it. And so we discount it and we think that it's not real. And that's a mistake. That is a mistake, because we have so much more support than what we can imagine. We have so much more power over our environment than we have been taught to believe. And all of that occurs through our attention, because our attention quite literally facilitates our intention. So wherever we're going to place our attention, we're infusing that with our life force, with our original wisdom. And we have this inherent intelligence that is way smarter than our minds. Sorry, way smarter than anything that we have been taught. And this, it doesn't matter whether you have a master's degree or a PhD or, a super high IQ. This intelligence, the intelligence of the universe, which is the fabric of the universe, is so much smarter than all of us. And when we can learn to put our trust in this intangible, nebulous thing that we don't really understand, we can surrender to this higher power, however you describe that for yourself in your own life and in your own world. We can be guided. We can be led. We can be in cooperation with the highest part of ourself, even though sometimes our local logical mind might be thinking, gosh, this doesn't make any sense, or I don't understand this, or I want to be in control of this. Hi, Courtney. Welcome in. Thank you for being here. All right, so we're going to send some light. And this is the part of our show where we come together with our intention and we send the sacred light of the divine through our intention out and around the world to anybody who might be in struggle, anybody who might need some upliftment. So I'm going to put myself in the sacred container today and ask for a little bit of light myself. But I'm also going to include here Betty and Bob. I'm going to include Celia and Don. I'm going to include David and Felicia and Paul and Celia and Rose and Brittany and Lauren and Everest and Surrey. I'm going to include Nicole and Ashley and Meredith and Addison. I'm going to include Mara and Brooke. Thank you, KB. Sprinkle that light, KB says. We're going to send that light out and around the globe. And if there's anybody, KB wants us to include Ashley, Maria, Nancy, Lisa. Hi, Charlene. Welcome. If there's anyone that you would like to include in our Sacred Circle of Light, please drop their name in the chat, or you can go to spiritualambition.sacredlight.com and submit the name of anybody who you would like to be placed into our sacred container. All right, well, let's just take that moment. And we send that light out and up around the world, spreading good juju and upliftment to all. I mean, what a nice thing to do, right? I do this at the end of my morning practice each day, really calling to mind anybody that I'm aware of in my life, whether I know them or not. Sometimes it's entire countries or certain communities or groups of people. So it's so important. One of the spiritual truths that I want to remind us all of today is that we are all spiritual beings making our way through this epic human adventure. And we forget that, we get locked into physical world reality and we push ourselves and force ourselves against time and space and initiatives that we want to push through and make happen. And when I started learning about universal laws and how to align myself with those universal laws, my life started working out in really incredible, miraculous, amazing ways, ways where I didn't have to try so hard. I could just surrender and relax and allow, and things would begin to unfold. So, the physical laws that we have been living by are also somewhat outdated, actually, because they come from a Newtonian worldview that sees the universe really as a fixed machine and sees us as powerless within that machine. But in probably the last 20 years, quantum physics has been becoming more and more well known. And this idea of the observer effect and the fact that we have the ability to influence and change the outcome of something simply by being part of it. And what do I mean by being part of it? Simply by observing it. As we observe something, we have a lens that we look through. And that lens that we look through is very much shaped by our thoughts and our belief systems. And it acts as a lens that colors every single thing that we see. So when we're observing something, and if we believe that life is a struggle and I have to struggle and nobody is here to support me, all of those things are going to be realized in my life. But if I start looking through a lens that lets me know I'm not smarter than the universe and that the universe has my back and life loves me, the universe is on my side, I can begin to believe that things can unfold through and around me with ease and effortlessness and grace and abundance and joy. As I start saying that and seeing that and observing that, that then becomes my reality. So this is all happening in the energetic world. And in Original Wisdom, one of the first chapters that I want to talk about today is chapter 2, Everything is Energy. And everything is energy. There's a quote here at the top of the page. It says, if you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration, because these are quite literally the fabric of the experience that we're having. And we don't often consider that we're really one energy because we experience ourselves as an individual, as an individualized expression of that energy. So it's easy to forget that we're really all one energy. And I like to think of the whole world as this organism that is learning from itself. But that gets a little too esoteric. So, because everything is made of different vibrational frequencies, and because the law of, wow, I'm off today, man. I'm just not streaming it the way I want to. It's really frustrating. This is me in full living color, flawed and messy. Yeah, it's the real truth of it. I so want to have it all together all the time, but I don't. It's just the way it is. Thank you. Oh, thank you, sunshine. Thank you for the love. Thank you, KB. Yeah, I appreciate everybody so much. All right, let me see if I can tune in and come back and be clear about what I want to share about energy and vibration and frequencies. And what I wanted to say was that the law of magnetic attraction is always operating. And so when we get fixated, and that can be fixated on a thought, it can be fixated on a belief system, it can be fixated on an actual feeling that we're having. When we are fixated at a particular frequency, like if we believe that everything is always a struggle, it's going to be a struggle, because that then becomes the vibrational match that we are at. So I just want you to take that in. If we're constantly putting our attention on the struggle, then the struggle is what we're going to get, because the law of magnetic attraction finds that and meets that. You can almost think about this like different floors in a building. And we have these lower frequency floors, and we have these higher frequency floors. And whatever's going on at the higher frequency, it's not getting down here to the lower floors, because what's happening on the lower floor stays on the lower floor. So this is why we can be intentional about what it is we want to create. And this brings me to the next chapter that I want to highlight in here, which is chapter 3, which is about choice makes you a creator. And in our human experience, the one thing that we absolutely all share, that we all have, no matter what circumstance or situation you were born into, no matter how much money you have or where you come from, we all have the power of choice. And it's in that power of choice we begin to shape our reality and our experience with the choices that we make, that then send the law of cause and effect into action. And I know this is where sometimes people get paralyzed and they say, I don't want to make the wrong choice. And if I make the wrong choice, then I'm going to get bad repercussions and I'm going to have some negative situation to have to deal with. I want to go out on a limb and say no choice is a bad choice, because every choice gives us the opportunity to learn something. And we are given the opportunity to learn what we've come here to learn, to be able to reach our next level of potential. So if we make a choice and maybe that choice doesn't go the way we wanted it to go, but we get to learn something along the way, then that is growing us. It's expanding our awareness and our consciousness, and it's opening us to something new that maybe we weren't aware of yesterday. So our choices are very powerful, but we don't want to be paralyzed by being fearful of making the wrong choice, because our choices are designed to support us in the curriculum that we are here to move ourselves through. And we can only reach our fullest realized expression, and we can only get to our fullest and curriculum. Hi, Gaynor. Welcome. Come on in. Thanks for being here. All right. So let me tell you a little bit about Original Wisdom and how this came to be. So this is really my story of how I left corporate land, how I left my corporate role, my corporate job, and found my way into spiritual psychology, into coaching. But more than that, it's about how I undid all of the very rigid rules that I had been living by in my own consciousness. The framework that I had been taught by my parents and my teachers, by religion and government and culture and society, all of the influences that we have that are constantly bearing down on us, telling us who to be, why to be, how to be, what to be. All of that gets ingrained at a pretty early age. Usually it gets anchored in between the ages of 0 and 21. And that framework gets established. And then we live our life according to that framework. Well, this book walks you through how to undo all that framework and how to begin re-engineering it, reestablishing it, reimagining it, reimagining your life the way that you would like it to go. And there might be some things in here that you already know about, like affirmations, for example. The affirmations that I refer to in this book are called sacred truth activations. And the reason that I call them sacred truth activations is because the way they're written and the way that they are designed, they're designed to call in and call forward the higher part of you. And I wrote them with great intention. And I wrote them in a way that is designed to call forward your soul, to call forward your power. If you're thinking about a good stocking stuffer for people that you love in your life that could really use a boost of enthusiasm, a boost of inspiration, a boost of cosmic juju. I've never said that before. This would be the book. So these sacred truth activations are really powerful. And part of the reason why they are so powerful is because every one of them starts with 2 magic words. And those 2 magic words are I am. And when we say those words, I am, we are quite literally engaging the powers of the universe. Oh my God, did my camera just go out? Are we having Mercury retrograde shenanigans? Oh my God. Well, I don't know if you guys can still hear me. My show's turning into a podcast pretty quickly. Oh, and now I'm back. Kelly, are you getting all this back there? Oh boy, Mercury in retrograde. Yes, Mercury is in retrograde. And, don't make eye contact with it. All right. Some issues. All right. Well, stay with me if you're with me. Listen deeply from your heart. Here's the thing when we use I am, nobody else can say that on your behalf. When you use those 2 tiny little words, they're a little bit like a magic wand because it literally calls in your original wisdom. When you say, I am, you're calling in the power and the presence of your soul. But here's what happens. And this is also very important before I share what happens. Your soul is neutral about everything. It doesn't care if the video goes out. It's here for the experience. Our soul sees everything as neutral. The crisis that we went through, the tragedy that maybe we're watching our neighbor go through, something really awful or terrible or bad, which is just a title that we would put on it from the position of our ego and our personality. That's the part of us that views things as right or wrong or good or bad. And that's what traps us and entangles us in a whole lot of suffering. But our original wisdom, that's totally how I feel today, you guys. This is totally how I feel. Upside down with Mercury retrograde, right? I know, it's crazy. Thank you for the wings, Kelly. I need those wings right now. Our soul is neutral. Our original wisdom is neutral. See, here's the thing. The ego and the personality loves the data. It loves the facts. It wants to collect all of the information so that it can be right, so that it can feel safe, so that it can be in the know. But our original wisdom, the higher part of us, is here for the experience because it's here for the wisdom. And wisdom can only be garnered through experience. So back to the I am. So here's what happens. Most of us walk around and we say things like, and we think things like, and we feel things like, I am so tired. I am over it. I am stuck. I am angry. I am in disbelief that this happened, right? Fill in the blanks. Whatever our sad story is about whatever drama we might be dreaming up, we attach these two really powerful words, I am, to what we don't want. And that's a perfect recipe to get more of what we don't want. So I'm going to surprise us with just a random share on one of these sacred truth activations. This isn't even something that I thought that I was going to talk about during this episode, but I'm going to do it because I just want to give you, I want to give you an experience of this. So this is out of the chapter on our beliefs. It comes from chapter 6. And hi, Jill. You're in Costa Rica. Got shook up by a baby earthquake. Oh my God. Was that today? You're awake now. Yeah, I hear you. I know that can be really unsettling. Well, I'm glad that you're okay. I'm glad that everybody's okay. I know that we did have some earthquakes like a couple of weeks ago. So it's a little unnerving that there's still earthquakes going on there. All right, just sending light to Costa Rica. Just now. Blessings, blessings. All right, let's all of us just take a moment and just send the light to anyone in Costa Rica who might be experiencing fear right now as a result of an earthquake. I want to share one of the Sacred Truth activations with you. I am shaping my life through beliefs. That's what it's called. And if you want to close your eyes and just open to receive this, I want to invite you to do that. I am aware that my beliefs create my world. I am learning and exploring the belief system that I was raised with, and I'm aware that I can choose to update these beliefs in a way that is supportive to how I would like to experience my life. I am aware that when I see my life through the perspective of my higher self or my soul or my original wisdom. These are all synonymous. I am seeing all of life with love. I am aware that everything that is happening is presenting me with the opportunity to grow and learn, evolve, and expand. I'm aware that many of my deeply ingrained beliefs are the stepping stones for me to recreate new experiences in my life. I'm aware that the slightest shift in my beliefs can make a significant difference in my life experience. I'm aware that I can relax when things do not seem to be going my way. I'm able to take a step back and remind myself that everything is happening to benefit me. I choose to update how I see the world. I change my beliefs to support the experience I want to have. I'm aware that when I live my life in support of my expanded evolution, this creates a strong foundation for my life. I accept and allow more love, success, clarity, abundance, and fun to enter my life. So that's just one of the sacred truth activations in here, and there are 12. And as a matter of fact, there is a URL address going by on the screen right now, which it's actually Kelly originalwisdombook.com. If you go to originalwisdombook.com, originalwisdombook.com, on that page, you're going to see the opportunity to get all of the sacred truth activations as well as all of the opportunities for transformation. So this is really a teaching memoir. And I'm a storyteller, and I haven't even told you guys any stories today because I don't know, I got so caught up in the info, in the data. But the stories that are in here are pretty phenomenal, and they're pretty miraculous actually about how my life began to unfold when I started applying the principles that I will teach you about in this book. So at the end of every chapter, there are opportunities for transformation. And in the chapter on the beliefs, at the end of the chapter, and at originalwisdombook.com on that page, when you scroll down, there is a list of limiting beliefs. And, sometimes we ask ourselves the questions like, what is a limiting belief? And sometimes it's hard to come up with what those are on our own because we feel like they're part of our reality. And we get accustomed to something that we don't even realize is limiting us. And I'm going to tell you a funny little story, actually, that I learned from a coach friend of mine. Her name is Mary Morrissey. And she told this story, and it really hit home. So there is a gentleman who is watching a guy fishing at the end of a pier. And this guy's sitting on the pier. He's been sitting there all day long and he's fishing, and he throws his line out and he catches fish and he brings the fish back in and he gets the fish and he chops off their heads and he throws the head back into the ocean. And this guy is observing this and he's watching this guy and he's like, why are you throwing half of the fish back in the ocean? And the fisherman looks at the observer guy and he says, well, I cut part of the fish off and throw it back into the ocean because my frying pan is only this big. That is an example of a limiting belief, a limiting way of thinking. I hope that lands. I hope that makes sense. I hope you're following my logic. Kim, thank you. I hope you do read it. And, if you go on Amazon, that's the quickest way to get it. And actually, on originalwisdombook.com, I narrated the audio. So I would like to let everybody know that if you listen to the audio on this book, then you're going to get the transmission. You're going to get the energetic transmission of me sharing this information. And there's a lot of good, yummy, cosmic juju in that. So I narrated the Audible. If you want the book fast, you can go to Amazon and you can get it there. You can get it at Barnes and Noble. You can get it at any bookseller. Originalwisdombook.com. All right. What else do I want to talk about? We talked about thoughts. We talked about beliefs. I talked a little bit about the end of the book, the opportunities for transformation. I'm holding an apple that you can see here on the cover. And I'm kind of pausing if I want to tell the story because it's kind of long. But what the hell? I'm here to tell you a story. So my husband and I were reading this book by Pam Grout called I think it's called E Squared, 9 do-it-yourself experiments that prove your thoughts create your reality. And one of the exercises in her book is she says to make a demand of the universe. But when you make this demand of the universe, it can't have any attachment to it. It has to be clean and clear. Like it has to be something that doesn't matter to you. Because when we really want something, believe it or not, we actually create friction around whatever that is. When we are holding on to something or we're wishing really hard for something, we bring an energy to whatever that is that really prevents us from receiving what wants to come to us. So this is why in this experiment, she suggests that we don't want to have any attachment to whatever it is. So I asked the universe to bring me an apple because it was totally random. At the time, didn't even like apples. It was like, whatever. It was like no big deal. And the next morning, I was leaving to go on a business trip. And so I thought it would be even more difficult for the universe to bring me an apple. So I got up, I went on this business trip and got on the plane to go to the Ritz-Carlton Global Leadership Conference. And I wasn't really well when I got on that plane because I had a frozen shoulder. And I had a frozen shoulder for a long time. And I was in a great deal of pain. And I knew going to this meeting, I probably wasn't going to sleep good. I would drink too much. I would be eating rich foods and having wine pairings because it was a Ritz-Carlton meeting. So I was in a lot of pain and I applied my usual strategy to manage the pain. Now, this is 13 years ago now, but I applied my usual strategy, which was to ignore it. Anybody familiar with any strategy like that where we ignore signals from our body? Yeah, most of us do it on a regular basis. And that's what I did. So I curled up in a corner seat or a window seat rather, and I was reading a book that was assigned to me in my master's program, and it was called Finding Your Element by Ken Robinson. And I was really excited about this book, Finding Your Element, because I, at the time, was really wanting to find my element. And I was at the very last pages of this book. And I am no closer to finding my element than I was at the very beginning of the book. But as I was reading, Robinson is talking about how most of us, we play it safe. And he was using the metaphor, or the quote rather, that Mark Twain uses, where he says 20 years from now, we're going to be more disappointed by the things we didn't do than by the things we do. So sail away from the safe harbor, or throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, explore, dream, discover. So I'm reading this quote, and all of a sudden I feel a little bit of emotion, like sort of coming up inside of me. And I'm recognizing that I have always played it safe. I've always played it safe. And I can feel like that something's happening inside of me, like this little twinge in my belly and a little pressure of emotion in my heart. So I keep reading. And then I see a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. And the quote says, "What lies behind you and what lie before you are tiny matters compared to what lie within you." And then I started thinking, what lies within me? What lies within me that is dying to be expressed, dying, craving to be let out, to be let up? And I can feel even more emotion rising inside of me as I'm coming into awareness of how I have always played it safe, and that there are things inside of me that I really want to share. And I don't even know what those things are, but I know they're in there. And I know that I want to excavate them and take them up and take them out and share them out into the world. I keep reading. And then I get to this little tiny quote by Elizabeth Appel. Pay attention to this. Appel, like apple, Elizabeth Appel. And the quote is, and you might have heard this quote, it's frequently attributed to Anais Nin. I think I pronounce her name wrong. My husband always corrects me on that. But the poem goes like this. And then the day came when remaining tight in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. And in that moment, my shoulder that was throbbing with pain quite literally became that bud. It literally became that bud. And I was sobbing in my airplane seat. All of a sudden, my knees were curled up to my chest, and I was sobbing in complete shame of the truth that I was realizing inside of me, of complete awe of the truth that I was suddenly aware of. And the truth that I was suddenly aware of was that I could not do that job for one more minute. And here's the thing, it wasn't a bad job, anyone. Like, it was an amazing company. I worked alongside best in class ladies and gentlemen. They were amazing. The company was amazing. But I was being called to something else that I wouldn't give myself permission for. I was being called to something greater that I couldn't see my way to, because I was so locked into and conditioned by the framework that I was in. So I get off the plane, and I get off the plane to go to this conference now as a completely different woman than the woman who got on board on that plane. Like, I was completely changed because of this awareness that I had. I was completely sure inside of myself that there was something else. And even though I didn't know what it was, I didn't have a clue what I would do to take care of my financial responsibilities. I didn't know what I would do for work in the world. I didn't have a clue. But what I did know was that I could not do that job for one more minute. I was sure of it. So I attend the conference. And as I'm attending the conference, I am looking through a very different lens than I have ever looked through before. Because usually I'm like the first person in the breakout room. I'm sitting in the front row. I'm taking copious notes so that I can take all this information back to my hotel and apply it when I get there. None of this is happening. What's happening is I am really recognizing myself for the career that I have had, for how hard I worked to get to where I was. And it's the very last night of this conference, and we're at the awards banquet. And my name gets called to the stage where I am the recipient of the Western Regional Marketing Achievement Award for the third consecutive year in a row. For the third year in a row, I am the recipient of this award. And I get the award and I'm clutching it in my hands. And as I'm walking back to my table, I know in my heart that now is the time. It's time for me to get off of that stage and maybe get onto a different stage, even though I don't know what different stage I'm getting onto at the time. But I knew that it was coming to completion at the precise right moment. So I sit back down at my table and they have just served dessert. And before me is the most beautiful, elaborate, gorgeous apple dessert with, like, in typical Ritz-Carlton style, green apple sorbet. They had a menu card, apple confit. All of the apple description is being listed in this menu card, or maybe I would have missed it because I was so caught up in the moment. And as I saw this apple dessert, I was mystified, and I knew in that moment we are all so much more powerful than we have a clue about. Like, you can't even call that a synchronicity. You know what I mean? Like, it's just too fantastical. It's too miraculous. And miraculous it was. And I knew that that was the universe winking at me like, yes, Donna, it is time. It's time to follow your heart. It's time to follow your dreams. It's time to believe in yourself, in things that don't make sense, to follow a line of energy, to chase something down because it brings you joy. And maybe it's connecting you to a pivotal place on the path. But sometimes we think we're going somewhere and we buy into the misunderstanding or the misbelief that that was the end of the destination. And it's not. It's not. So, original wisdom is the story of how I began to re-engineer and reimagine the framework that is operating in my consciousness that has allowed me to break free of the constraints of physical world reality and pushing and forcing my way through time and space and matter, which is painful and arduous and hard. And how I learned to align myself with universal law, with the laws of something greater and something higher and something miraculous. So you can learn more about me at donnabond.com. Please take a visit. This book, you can read all the reviews on Amazon. I have only 5-star reviews, which is pretty amazing. And I'm very proud of that. So I'm happy to tell you that. And what I also want you to know is when I wrote this book, right before I sent it to my publisher, I sat at my laptop and I put a blessing on every single page. I literally paged every single page of this book, which how many pages are there? There are 249 pages. And I went through all 249 pages with a blessing and an intention. And the blessing and the intention were that whoever reads this book is encountering the exact information that their soul needs at the precise moment that they need it, so that it will uplift their life and uplift them and uplift their consciousness. And for a long time, when I first published Original Wisdom, Harness the Power of the Authentic You, that is really one of the most popular things that I heard from people is they said, this book came to me at the exact moment that I needed to read it. And the information that I found in it was perfect for what was going on for me in my life at that time. Well, here we are to the end of the show once and again. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for tuning in. We're not going to do the celebration of Love's Alchemy today, but it's okay. I'm not perfect. I'm going to close our space. I want to say thank you to anyone and everyone who tuned in with us here today, who is inspired to check out Original Wisdom, Harness the Power of the Authentic You, my first book. We ask for a blessing of grace and ease and joy to be placed upon everybody as we move through the holiday season that is up ahead of us. May you connect with your loved ones in new and miraculous ways. May you find depth and meaning in coming together with those that you love. May you find surrender and allowing around anything that isn't going your way. Being able to look upon it with curiosity and inquiry, wondering, what is the universe showing me in this moment? How can I be growing through whatever this is? And what can I be learning? We are now closing all energetic lines of communication between any of us, closing all open portals, gateways, channels, agreements, and lines of communication between any of us in the spirit world. We are grateful and we say thank you. We are closing the show in love, with love, for love, by love, as love. Thank you for being here. Bye now.